Hey guys, it's Hart, and today I'll be breaking down this 8-game NBA slate on DraftKings. Going to be talking through some of my favorite early look core plays, as well as building a potential lineup with the early look core plays. Obviously, it all changes with injury news, so make sure to stay updated with me on Twitter. Follow my free Patreon link down below, where I go more in depth on the whole slate, and hit that like button, and I'll see you guys in the breakdown. Fellas, last night was the most frustrating slate in the entire world. The whole NBA season, last night was the worst. Santi goes for 40. Naismith goes for 40. The worst chalk play I've ever seen. Naismith goes for 40, career high. Quickly, should have been 70, 80% owned with Brunson being ruled out, 5,400. Quickly has massive, massive ceiling, as we've seen this season. Only 46% owned. What happens? Goes out there first half, 19 fantasy points, has a flame. What does he do the second half? I don't know. Maybe just 3 fantasy points. How about that? Donovan Mitchell, 20 fantasy points, gets kicked out in the second half. Hardaway Jr., been chalked so many times this season. I didn't like getting into him. It's just kind of how my lineup worked out because I was banking on the Warriors guys getting ruled out, at least 1 or 2 of them, which obviously worked out. But landing on Hardaway Jr. there. 22. There was no Luka the whole second half. How do you get 22? This dude chucks. How do you get 22? 3 of 18. Really? Really? But when he's mega chalk, he'll go for 40, 45. But I can't get rewarded when he's 0.5%. There's no Luka. He goes 3 of 18. I mean, I got lucky with Seti, but it doesn't matter because all the other chalk smashed. And the bad chalk. Anthony Davis was fine. Ingram was great. Kuminga was fine. The game kind of blew it out. Expected him to be higher owned, but obviously no one really planned on the Warriors guys being ruled out. It gave me a huge leverage spot, but just one of those nights. All of the other Cavaliers guys had career games, ceiling games because of Donovan Mitchell getting kicked out that second half. So it was just so frustrating. But that's enough of the tilting. On today's slate, Portland. The big news here with Portland is Dame's been on his historic streak here of scoring pretty much 45 points a game the past 2 weeks. So if you want to ride the hot streak, I don't mind it. He's gonna have to do a lot more because Nurkic is out. Grant might be out as well. So the big news with the Nurkic is that Eubanks and Watford will split the center minutes. They both look like great value plays. Nazir Little should be in line to receive a lot more minutes if Grant's out. It'll be interesting to see if they start Nazir in place of Grant. If he does, you'll get ruled out, or if they'll start Watford alongside Eubanks and run it with Lillard, Simons, and Josh Hart. It'll be interesting to see, but there's a lot of value and a lot to like here on this Portland side, as you can tell. Maybe Keon Johnson, he'll get dusted off, see maybe 20-ish minutes. So we'll kind of wait for the injury news there, but a good amount to kind of stay focused on in that Portland game. For the Washington side, more secondary options. Porzingis has a solid ceiling here. Kuzma, I don't love the price tag, but sure, you could have that random 50-point game. Beal, a little bit more of appealing of a price tag, but he's just been so just non-aggressive and just more as a playmaker. I don't think there's a need to get to him. I think my favorite one, standout one, would be Denny here, 5,000. A very, very solid player when it comes to just doing a little bit of everything. So at 5,000, we know he has a pretty solid ceiling, pretty solid and safe floor as of right now. Obviously, he can still go out there and get you 15 fantasy points, but I think he looks decent. Probably the best play on the Washington side for me today. If Gafford, it looks like he should be good to go. Don't mind him. He should see close to 25, maybe 30 minutes. Obviously, he has a huge ceiling if he does well, but there's that foul trouble risk with him. So maybe him and Denny are my favorites. DeLon, sure, you could take a dart throw on him at 4,000. He's been seen, mid to low 20s minutes. Does have a ceiling if he hits a shot, gets you a couple steals. That's really it. Moving on to the Kings side. Sabonis, I'm sure he'll be super chalky, coming off a 62 fantasy point game. But when I play him, he goes for 40, 43, 27, 43, 41. I played him all throughout that stretch. Of course, the very next game, 62. It's just super frustrating, but DFS-wise, he looks great. Fox is out, so that means I would assume Davion Mitchell is going to start here at 3,000. He's a guy that he used last season when he was kind of the main guard for a while. He had a huge ceiling. He had to do more, obviously, because Sabonis was hurt for a while. Obviously, he didn't get traded there till midway through, but he could get you mid-30s, but realistically, we're just kind of hoping for at least 15 fantasy points at 3,000. So I think he looks great there. If he starts, I do think you'll be more of a usage bump to guys like Malik Monk. Kevin Huerter looks very solid there at 5,400, who hasn't been playing well recently. Maybe that'll keep some people off of him, but we know he has a huge ceiling, should be in line for more minutes. He's kind of just struggled with the minutes and the shot attempts lately. They've been running with the hot hand of Malik Monk, but expect Huerter to bounce back here in a great matchup. It's bonus revenge game, so a lot to like here on the Sacramento side as well. Indiana, of course, Halburn. They didn't say anything about his minutes, so really no one played him. Went for 52, but love his upside here. Revenge spot for him as well at 9,200. So if he plays, I think he looks great. Turner would look great. Those guys would be really the only ones for me to get to. Maybe Buddy Hield if you want. Otherwise, if he's out, it's obviously a little bit more of a minutes or usage bump too. Guys like TJ, who would probably start. He looked solid. The price is up there to 6,900. Buddy Hield would look pretty solid there at 6,500. He'd look to do more. Turner would probably be the same. He'd still be a very solid play. The rest of the team just kind of there, secondary plays. Nembhard, it would look better as a very solid value play there at 3,900 if Halburn's out. Obviously, if Halburn's in, no real need to get to Nembhard. And then Naismith, 9 and 12, 38 fantasy points, really. I think he was the leading scorer for them yesterday. But yeah, you can get to him again if you want. Okay value play. Moving on to Charlotte. They just played last night, so coming off a back-to-back. LaMelo Ball got kicked out. Just wasn't a good game for Charlotte until the end where they started to come back. But, they ended up doing it and they lost. But in terms of DFS-wise, LaMelo looks solid as a spin-up play. Rozier, now at that price tag of 8K, he's just kind of there. Plumlee at 6,700. It's just more of a team of secondary options. Like Plumlee, he's been solid. Don't mind him. Washington, I think shot 315. So yeah, he's been on a cold streak there. He's super, super streaky, so I wouldn't trust him at that price tag. And then I think Mark Williams would probably be my favorite. Doesn't get a ton of minutes, should be anywhere between like 14 to 20, but he can be super productive when he's out there if you want to take a dart throw on him. I think there will be better value plays, so I don't think there's a need to get to like risky value plays unless you want to be super, super contrarian. Detroit side, once again, just a terrible team to have to like break down just because, their prices don't move because they just don't do anything. Obviously, Bogdan probably has the biggest upside there at 6,600. Very solid matchup. I don't mind getting some pieces from here, but it's just like with the value plays that are open up today, it's looking like more of a star and scrubs build. So I don't think there's a need to get to these guys, but they're interesting plays just because of their price tags and their upside. Duren, probably my favorite there. Minutes haven't been great recently, but he does have some upside. Killian Hayes has dropped down to 5,200, but if he's going to continue to come off the bench, I think he's more just a secondary play. But if he's going to start, I think at 5,200, I do think he looks very, very solid. Alec Burks, if he starts, he looks good. But yeah, a little bit of interest here in this Detroit side. I always mention Hamidou Diallo. He's pretty productive when he's coming off the bench there. So yeah, some interest there for me in that game. Moving on to Phoenix. Playing Boston, huge blowout risk. Phoenix has been getting absolutely thrashed recently. So Paul, Ayton, Bridges, Johnson all look like solid secondary options. Johnson at 5,400 probably intrigues me the most. You just really hope this game stays close. In terms of value, nothing really catching my eye. Moving on to Boston, one of those things. If you play a Boston guy, you really hope this game stays close because they just absolutely destroyed Brooklyn. And so, yeah, there's that chance that they continue the hot streak and just destroy the Suns as well. But Tatum looks like a great spin up play at 11,000. Brown looks decent there. It's 8,800. Of course, I played Brogdon in the other slates. He only had to play 22 minutes because they're up 65 at half. But yeah, he looks decent. He should see mid-30s minutes off the bench if this game is close. I don't mind him there in the mid-range. And I'll mention Robert Williams. He did very solid for me in a little amount of minutes there of 19, went for 30. So we know he's huge upside. It just, can he get the minutes? And he's usually productive when he's out there. He really hasn't been the best in terms of production-wise this season. But we know he has that massive production. So I do have a good amount of interest in him. And that's really it. Moving on to Orlando. Excuse me. On the Orlando side, another one of those teams I have a little bit of interest in. It's a solid matchup versus Minnesota. So Paolo looks solid. If I had to get two people, it'd probably be Paolo, Wendell, and Fultz to take a shot on. But once again, I don't know if I really want to get into the weeds of the mid-range just because of the value plays that are opening up. It's more stars and scrubs. Obviously, you can go the mid-range build. I'd suggest, Fultz, Paulo and Wendell as kind of the main pieces you attack. Franz does have some upside. He's 6,000. The minutes are there. It's just the production from all these guys is all over the place. You really don't know where it's going to come from. Cole Anthony's been losing minutes to Jalen Suggs. So at 3,600, you can definitely look to Jalen Suggs, who's been seeing mid-20s minutes the past few games. They're just kind of there for me on the Orlando side. On Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards coming off of All-Star game snub. But yeah, he's playing the minutes. Usage is there. So he always looks like a very solid spend-up play. D'Lo, decent secondary option. Gobert, questionable. If he's in, I like him. If he's out, it's once again load up on Naz Reid at 4,800, who'd be way too cheap. Obviously, there's that foul risk, but at that price tag, you can't argue. And Kyle Anderson's always a decent tournament option in the mid-range. Moving on to Toronto. They get a fantastic matchup here versus Houston. Pascal's prices came down to 9,100. He's been god-awful the past 4 games. So I love this matchup here. It'll be interesting to see what his ownership is like because he's been super bad recently. But yeah, I think he looks great at 9,100. Van Fleet looks solid coming off a triple-double. I'd rather get to Pascal with that price difference. That's really it. More secondary plays with Scotty, Gary Trent secondary. I still like Precious, even though his price is all the way up to 6,100. Now he's just more of like an okay play. Boucher, excuse me. He still looks very solid at 4,100 if you want a piece from this side that's not one of the main chalky starters. Moving on to Houston. We have Sengun at the top. Not the best matchup here, 9,000. I think I'm going to stay away from him. We know he has huge upside. It's just really hard to trust him in this matchup at 9,000. A lot of lanky guys that could guard him, so I think it's to be a struggle. There is some blowout risk here. Both the guards are still out, so expect some minutes for Martin, Eason, Smith Jr. if he's in. If he's out, Eason will probably start. I'd like him a good amount at 5,800. Eric Gordon's there, Tate, Knicks. It's just not much to like here for this Houston side. Moving on to Philadelphia and San Antonio. Fantastic spot here for Philadelphia. If you think this game stays close, I think Embiid is the clear best standout play here. Spin up play at 11-3. But we'll have to wait and see if he plays with that foot injury. Obviously, if he's out, I'm assuming they'll start Harrell. Harrell will be decent value there. You could definitely get to Paul Reed at the flat minimum price tag, coming off the bench to kind of backfill the minutes behind Harrell. Obviously, if Embiid's in, it's really just going to be Embiid and Harden for me. Sure, you can take a dart throw on one of the other 3 main options, but it's really just going to be those 2 for me as of right now. And then moving on to San Antonio. Trey Jones is questionable. If he's out, we'll probably get Branham starting. He'd be an okay value play. Probably prefer getting to like Davion Mitchell, but Branham would be very solid. Who else we got here? Sohan's ruled out, so we'll probably get Bates Diop starting. He'll be a decent value play. Obviously not the best matchup, but these guys should be in line to play a ton of minutes. Don't mind Jay Rich here at 4,800. Podol, just more of a contrarian mid-range play. Obviously huge foul trouble trying to guard Embiid, so I don't think there's a need to get to him, but he does have some upside. Moving on to Atlanta and Utah. Another great game environment here. Trae Young looks solid, so does Murray. Like Capella, a good amount at 6,100, has huge double-double upside. Always like to target Utah with the opposing team's bigs. Obviously, Capella's not like a main big who's going to be very aggressive offensively, but he can still score the ball and get a ton of rebounds. So I do like him. He can definitely get a 20-20 game. I like Bogdan as like a mid-range contrarian play there at 5,700. Hunter's always a decent value piece here. Should see like mid-30s minutes. Get you anywhere from 25 to 35 fantasy points. And that's really it. Moving on to Utah. Markkanen, it seems a little bit too cheap here. He's been solid. 8,400 as a decent value play, spin up play. Clarkson, 6,400. Hasn't been the best recently. I'd rather get to Markkanen. The rest of the team, they're just playing the guys a bunch of random minutes. Like Kessler saw in like 25, 22, 18, 25, then randomly 30. Like what? So, I guess he's in line. He has obviously double and huge upside with the blocks. It's just, you really can't trust the minutes, so it's super hard to get to him at times. Sexton, decent valued, 4,300, but that's really it. It's not a lot to like besides the Laurie on the Utah side for me. And yeah, that's going to do it for the slate breakdown. I don't think I'm going to do a lineup build just because there's a ton of injury news we kind of do have to wait on. So just stay tuned with me, wait with me on Twitter at HeartDFS to follow for the updates there, as well as my free Patreon write-up, which should be out probably around midday today. So make sure to hit that like button. Check that out. I'll probably have a price fix video out later today as well. So check that out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.